So hi everyone. Yeah, so my name's Shay. I do recognize some faces as some of us have already spoken in trying to get this study up and going. So yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Ella. So my name's Shay. I'm a doctor and researcher based at Oxford, and my research interest is in acoustic neuromas, vestibular schwannomas, specifically balance. So this is a session. We'll finish by about 1:45. But what I wanted to kind of focus on, given that I like doing things in threes. Is The first part would be a little bit of an introduction about myself and our research team, and I wanted to speak the second part about the fact that we are running this study now in trying to recruit acoustic neuroma participants to understand more about balance dysfunction, and I can add some color into why we're interested in balance dysfunction and dizziness. And then the final part is also a bit of exciting news to share that we have some more funding from Cancer Research UK to do another study. And I kind of wanted to go back to something that happened at the very beginning, which was a talk, an open discussion forum just like this, where there were patients and participants on the chat that helped form this study that we're running at the moment. I wanted to get some insights and input for this future study that we're going to run as well. So yes, so places to start would be a little bit of intro about me. So for some people, this might be a bit of repetition as we've kind of met already. I'm based at Oxford and I'm interested in balance dysfunction in acoustic neuroma. The reason is because balance dysfunction in acoustic neuroma is common. Over 60% of people with acoustic neuromas have balance problems. And yet, unfortunately, there isn't a great way to measure this. Patients, unfortunately, are left to quote unquote just get on with it. So our research aims to address this measurement gap because the measurement gap exists in that you'll have your surgery, you'll see your clinician at some point in time, and then there might be a gap for a few months, maybe 6 months before you see them again. And in that interim period of time, that's where balance dysfunction can really fluctuate and it's not really captured. And we know that balance dysfunction, when present, is the number one predictor of worse quality of life outcomes. So that evidence is very real, but we just don't have a scalable way of measuring it. So this is where the idea of using wearables comes into play, the ability to be able to measure and see those kind of fluctuating patterns. And the reason we're interested in this is because balance dysfunction, it can be treated. We know that vestibular rehabilitation exists as an option for patients to access, but unfortunately, we know that it's not available everywhere, and not all patients know that it exists. Um, we know that early treatment with vestibular rehabilitation does improve outcomes. And so we just need to find better ways of being able to measure it for patients so that patients can get the right treatment at the right time. And so that's the main motivation behind this research. And so what I'm going to share with you now is a very quick presentation about some of the early pilot work that we've done that informs the study that we are proposing at this stage. The study that I'm doing at this stage is we're currently recruiting for 100 acoustic neuroma patients and participants to wear a wearable device, a research grade wearable device for 7 days, carry on with your normal activities, and answer a questionnaire at some point in time. And this is going to help us understand more about balance and dizziness in vestibular schwannoma. And I'll show you why we have some conviction that this is an interesting way of measuring balance dysfunction in a way that is slightly different to how it's been measured before. So what I have here is a slideshow of a presentation that we presented at a scientific conference. So it was a British Neurosurgery Research Group conference in London. This was the first time that acoustic neuromas and balance dysfunction had been presented, and it received a lot of support from the academic community, supporting that this kind of research is necessary, and the results of which have started to support that we should do this in 100 people. Um, so very so as I was saying before, these are acoustic neuroma participants wearing a research-grade wearable device for 7 days. And then we are just basically looking at what kind of differences in the kind of behaviors and movement behavior patterns are there between acoustic neuroma participants and age-match healthy controls. So this slide is obviously not particularly necessary to explain because everyone here knows what an acoustic neuroma is. But I guess just to highlight the fact that balance problems are common in acoustic neuroma. And I think that that's quite an important thing for me to kind of highlight again is I remember doing one of these prime talks over a year ago, and I remember hearing patient stories being like they had dizziness and their symptoms. It described this idea of feeling like they were drunk at 10 a.m. or other people mistaking them for being drunk at 10 a.m. and clinical services not being really sure of how to deal with the balance problems. And so sometimes people resorted as a result of this, some people felt their balance problems were, because of being of a certain age or something else. But, balance problems are a symptom that can occur with acoustic neuromas. And this is another thing, which is, again, these slides were aimed at presenting to a scientific community who, perhaps don't understand the problem the same way that some of you might understand balance problems in acoustic neuroma. So this was one participant who shared her experience of what her world feels like, and this is from a Facebook chat. So I have her permission to share this, and you could see that this is a real problem and it affects many people, and it can be quite debilitating if that's what your world can feel like when you have balance problems that aren't getting the right treatment at the right time. And yes, I guess the point to highlight here is the fact that balance problems, they are the #1 predictor of worse quality of life outcomes. And that's why we're focusing on trying to find ways of trying to improve patients' independence. Because we do want to move away from this idea of treating brain tumors as a survival diagnosis, especially when acoustic neuroma patients do have long years ahead of them. And we need to move into this new phase of how do we improve their independence better. And so, yes, I thought I'd just give a little bit of background of why quality of life matters. So this is quality of life research. This is about improving independence for patients. And you can see that in the acoustic neuroma space, although many people I interact with feel like the research area is quite under-researched, there's been a lot of movement heading in this direction. I mean, this is only until 2019, and you can understand it's probably gone further up. But what's interesting is that the number of research in quality of life in acoustic neuromas is quite top heavy, focusing on hearing and facial nerve, and not very much on dizziness. And so the question is why? And the answer to that is because of the fact that we don't actually have objective ways. We have objective ways of measuring hearing and facial nerve function, but we don't have scalable tools to measure balance dysfunction. For any of you who are very fortunate to be in a service or in a centre such as UCL, Leicester, Oxford, to name a few, you're very aware that they have this very expensive balance testing equipment. But unfortunately, that care is not equitable. It's not available, say, for example, for a patient in Weymouth. And this is where we think that wearables have a really high return, because a wearable is a cheap device. It is something which you can monitor someone's movement and behavior in terms of balance dysfunction. And so this, we think, is a way of being able to look at balance problems in VS. And so, the slide here is basically to demonstrate that the way we did this study is by having 15 acoustic neuroma participants and 15 age-match healthy controls. And what we did do is we kind of identified which side their tumor was, when they had surgery, if they had surgery, but we did include anyone with vestibular schwannomas. And the reason for that is because balance is so dynamic in vestibular schwannoma. You can have it at any point in your journey. And that's why we thought it was incredibly important to not exclude people. And so they wore these wearable devices, one on each arm, and we asked that they wore it for 7 days. And this is quite a helpful picture to see. This is what the device looks like. For the study that I'm proposing in the 100, it will only be one device, one on the dominant wrist. But this is a nice image to basically demonstrate what it can look like if you're interested in participating. It doesn't it doesn't record audio, it doesn't record GPS, and it is waterproof. And participants kindly did wear it for 7 days continuously. It's a hypoallergenic wristband, so it shouldn't cause any irritation. And yes, with all of these studies, we found that feasibility is an important thing to do, and we found that everyone was happy to wear the devices. That's basically the message in this slide. And this is a slide basically as part of research, we need to report, um, you know, these kind of demographic results. And the key message in this slide is to show that we had equal distributions of males and females, a fairly equal distribution of age, and the fact that we had separated participants into being dizzy and non-dizzy based on a quality of life questionnaire that measured dizziness. And so I guess these are the results from this pilot study that we're excited to share, and it's fueling our 100 study. And what we do notice is, so this is a forest plot where this is the median line. This graph is this box is showing dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants. This box is showing non-dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants, and this is healthy controls. And what we see is that there is a difference between the dizzy participants and the non-dizzy and healthy controls. NMO is how intense, how fast someone's moving, and then obviously there's total daily steps. So what the message that we had tried to infer from this is that there is a difference in intensity of movement, and there is a difference in volume of movement. So we're seeing that dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants are what we would regard as potentially being globally hypoactive. And why this is an important message is because we know that although an acoustic neuroma might not kill you, the point is, if our dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants are being underserved as a patient population, we know that they are unfortunately therefore at higher risk of other problems and consequences, such as heart disease. The next slide I'll show you is one of the other pieces of analysis that we're doing in this work, which is to address some of the things that have been raised in patient conversations, which is about the fact that balance problems do fluctuate. So this is a 24-hour kind of marker of someone's movement. And the red line are the dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants, and the green line are healthy controls. So again, this was as part of the pilot study, but the kind of signals we're starting to infer from this is that there is a difference in terms of how dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants move and how other people move. And we can see that there are certain times where that difference is more pronounced. So now we're at this stage now where we're moving towards this full study, and that's what I'll start to introduce and talk a little bit about. So I'll just change from sharing this to another page, which is here. So now we're at the stage where we're recruiting for VSWear. We've completed this study as part of a pilot in about 30 people. And now we know that there is a signal difference between dizzy vestibular schwannoma participants and non-dizzy and healthy controls. We want to now move from signal to evidence, and we think that doing this study in 100 people will allow us to finally present to the research world whether there is undeniable evidence that there is a difference in this movement pattern. And why this will be important is because I hope you understand that the kind of story here is that this is an under-researched topic, and we need to start building evidence step by step. And this is the next natural step. So VSWear is a 100-person study. It doesn't require any face-to-face visits. It is something that can be done completely remotely. And my single sentence summary is, are you happy to wear a Fitbit for 7 days? And I send you a questionnaire, and then you return it back to me, is essentially it. And it's part of a larger body of work that aims to understand dizziness better, because we think that the current tools just aren't good enough at being close to how patients experience dizziness, and be able to explore new treatment options, because we do want to address the measurement gap, which wearables are doing, and then explore treatment options. I did receive some emails from Ella about potential balance belts. So those are kind of conversations that I'll be looking at having in the future to see if we can detect balance problems earlier. Are there digital health tools that we can use that will be able to give patients get better independence? And this is basically the team whom I should have introduced at the very beginning. But Mr. Jay Retner, who might be on the call, he said he might be able to join. Um, oh, he is. I will let him introduce himself shortly if he's free. He might be busy at work, but Mr. Jarrettner is a consultant neurosurgeon in Oxford, and he's the surgeon who leads the care for acoustic neuromas in Oxfordshire. And my other supervisory team members are Aidan Doherty, who's a professor of wearables based in Oxford, and Professor Kristalina Antoniadis, who is a professor at Oxford and her special area of expertise is in gait. So we've assembled the right kind of team to address this question, and we hope to understand dizziness better and explore newer treatment options. So I will pause there. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions, and then we can also then move into a discussion about some of the other exciting parts of research that we're aiming to do. If Mr. Jaretna is free, he might want to say a few words as well, just to kind of say hello to everyone.
Hi, sorry, Shay. Hi, welcome, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of an operating list, so I'll hand back to Shay shortly. But thanks for joining us for the webinar. And thanks to Brains Trust for organizing this. Obviously, I'm sure we're preaching to the choir here, but we understand this is a very understudied but very important problem. And we wanted to quantify this before moving on. So I'm sure Shay will talk about what we're hoping to do in terms of treatment, but really we're at the stage where we're trying to quantify and study the problem. So very nice to meet everybody, and I'll hand back to Shay.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Jarrett, for coming to say hello. I know he's very busy operating at the moment, but he was very keen on coming to say hello to everyone because I think both of us are very grateful for the kinds of support we've had from Brains Trust. I mean, this is 14 months ago. Balance dysfunction is an area of research that not many people were taking very much notice. But Mr. Jarrett had very high conviction, seeing patients in his clinic, knowing that balance problem was very central, a central problem to them that they were suffering with, that we really wanted to find better ways of being able to measure the problem better, because that's the key, really. If you can measure the problem better, then you have an opening to identify better treatments. But yes, I'm sure you can tell that we're slightly emotionally invested in this research area, but we do kind of take this as a true science. So we report the results, as scientists without bias. So the point here is of discovery. Can we use this technique to see if we can identify something novel so we can identify better treatments for patients? At this stage, it maybe makes sense to answer any questions people might have so far before maybe we move into one of the next exciting things we're going to do.